Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Own Your Own panel. I have none other than Hudson Obayuwana with us today. He's an LA-born island boy who managed to go from Howard to Hollywood without missing a step. I think the next thing that really sticks out about this writer is that it runs in the family. His mom is also an author. And of course, you know that I really love to have an insider look as to why the person is who they are. And so the true artist, I think, in Hudson can be defined in his mom's words. She describes him as a beautiful son who is an honorable man and loved by the friends and women in his life. Welcome, Hudson.
Thank you, Kais. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Listen, writers are intended to create worlds and to define them, right? And they're the first step in creating the entertainment that we consume on screen. But I want to jump into how the LA-born kid ended up a fan of film, a fan of books, and ultimately made it his life's work.
I can't say just being LA born is it, but you know, when I was here, my mom, you know, it all starts with the parents and their influence and exposure. And you know, when I was in LA, my mom worked at and ran the box office. She was the ticket manager at Poly Pavilion at UCLA. And she also used to run the Hollywood Bowls ticket office as well. So far as I can remember when I was a kid, like I grew up like backstage at theaters and performances. And so I was just, before I could even remember anything else, like I was always in and around the arts. So it was just always around me, and it's something I observed and you know, wanted to do from a young age.
So we have a bit of family, I think, connection in that the arts were always present, but also in the choice to pursue it professionally, right? I read a bit of your mom's writing and then understood that she had in her life made kind of maybe a deal between being able to provide and be able to be a professional and being able to spend her time with the work that she most valued, right? Which she describes as writing and editing. I looked at an image that you shared quite some time ago of your well-worn shoes on your last day as a bartender. And I think it was, you know, you put some work in the shoes, and I think it's maybe representative of the work that you have to put in, and maybe some of the sacrifice and some of the scoffs, the marks that come with being an artist. It's natural to be interested in art coming from your background, but then you're also the son of a Nigerian dad who I imagine also has expectations and ideals, just the immigrant experience, the immigrant expectation. And you, I think, took some time between your move to Hollywood and your, what people might call your igniting or your full-time dive into writing. How did you navigate that period or that gap between, you know, the end of college and the start of what outsiders could identify as the career? Because we know the writer is always in process and in progress of being formed.
Yeah, well, if I can back up a little bit before then, I think when I majored in film production, minored in acting, majored in film production at Howard University. So I always, like I said, you know, growing up around it, I always knew that I wanted to be involved in it. Like literally my first job in St. Thomas, you know, my mom worked at Reichhold and she was the box office ticket manager at Reichhold. And literally like my first job was on the stage crew at Reichhold. So I went to Cancrine, I went to Charlotte Miley High School, and then I graduated. I went to my sophomore year, went to Antilles where I graduated before Howard. But even back then, like I was working on the stage crew at, 13, 14 years old, building sets and doing stuff, and was around when Starfest first started. Like my mom actually named Starfest. And so like when it was time for college and to choose a path, I don't know why it didn't dawn on me, but I was just like, man, it's something I could pursue in college and as a career. And, Howard University had such a reputable film program and theater arts program. So it was like a natural progression when I got there. And when I graduated, like I knew I wanted to come back to LA and it was something I wanted to pursue full time, but I really I had no idea how I was going to do it or how to make it happen. So I came out here and I had done some indie film stuff in college. So, I had a friend who's actually my writing partner now. He was in the graduate film program and he was shooting his thesis film and wound up casting me as one of the 4 lead characters of his thesis film, which was kind of like a male version of Sex and the City. So like I was one of those guys. And when I first came, I thought I was going into acting. Like writing wasn't initially what I wanted to do. I think I knew I wanted to be involved in the film process in some way, but I wasn't sure what that was going to be. And acting was what I thought I wanted to do. So when I came back to LA, I did got to central casting and sending out headshots and doing background work and those kind of things. And I was working in mental health and I was bartending, just, kind of hustling and finding different things to do on the side to support it. And, my writing partner now, the same guy, Brandon, came out here. And around that time, like Chappelle's Show had just gone off the air. So there was like this void. And it was around the time as well that people were just starting to experiment with putting their own original content out on YouTube. So you had like the Lonely Island guys and then Awkward Black Girl. Like this is back when Issa Rae was first doing Awkward Black Girl. And, Chappelle's Show had gone off the air and we thought that like, okay, we can fill that void and do sketch comedy. So we started a sketch comedy show called Purple Stuff TV. So at the time, like, I was working side jobs and just trying to figure it out. But Purple Stuff was really a great kind of segue in because we were doing it ourselves. We were writing our material. We were directing it ourselves. We were acting in some of it. And we were just, just a group of friends who really wanted to pursue this thing, but trying to like kind of make our own way. Speaking of owning your own, like we had to try and find our own way and, create the content. So that was kind of what, when I first moved back to LA was the start of trying to find my way and navigate the business. coming from LA. We were coming directly from Pennsylvania because my mom was in law school. And so we were in Pennsylvania for like a year and a half. And then in her second year, she decided she didn't want to pursue law anymore professionally. And she had lived in St. Thomas in the 70s. And she's a bit of a wanderlust. And she wanted me to experience the Caribbean. So we moved to St. Thomas. But I think having to navigate a new space, learning a new culture while learning myself, it's something that's just carried with me where like I'm able to, be put in new situations and see things from different perspectives and be really empathetic in terms of just, learning other cultures and learning other people and having to adapt. And I think that adaptability has helped me in my writing. So, like one of the things we want to tell universal stories, but from the perspective of people that look like us. So, sometimes when writing assignments come to us, there might be something that I might not initially be drawn to, but I'm able to pull from my life experience or find something else within the story or within the characters to kind of pull from. And then, all of my experiences will kind of go into shaping those worlds.
It is a whole new world right now in terms of how I think entertainment is being produced, and the call for what may be classified as Black focused or Black featuring art has increased. It's louder, not necessarily as we would like. We saw over the pandemic, we had an increase in Black professionals in entertainment, but it was also at the same rate as other groups increase. So we stayed at the same percentage overall in terms of Black professionals, both in front and behind the camera. Mm-hmm. My question is, in this world where people are really pitching and maybe proposing a lot more Black art, right, as they describe it, how do you navigate the need to have some version of the story told and the desire for accuracy in the presentation and representation of certain characters?
Mm-hmm. I think the main thing for me and my writing team, it all starts with authenticity. So you have to be authentic to the story you want to tell. You have to be authentic to the characters. And there was, during the pandemic, and unfortunately with everything that happened with George Floyd and everyone being home and just being forced to focus on what was happening, there was this kind of like trendy uptick in wanting to be supportive and support emerging voices from this community and things told through this lens, which was stuff that was the stuff that we had always been doing. But I think that, even beyond that, like we're 2 years out of it now, and people aren't really, there were these company lines in terms of wanting to tell these specific types of stories. And it was like something that people felt like they had to do. But, we had always been in that space. And, it just, again, authenticity, specificity are really, really important. And those are the things that are going to resonate with other people. So even if like Homecoming, you didn't have to necessarily go to an HBCU. You didn't necessarily have to be familiar with, the places and things we're talking about, but everyone, there are universal themes like friendship and second chances and, having an opportunity to do something over. And, those are the kind of things that, we try and do in our writing in terms of just being authentic. And I think people from any community or wherever can gravitate to that and relate to it.
You speak of the reality that people just want to be seen and heard, and so you can have relatable pieces and relatable stories. In terms of making sure that you maintain an ownership stake in the work that you present, how does Murder Inc. as a company approach the conversations. Once you have finished products, you have the interest from people in the likes of Netflix, you have multiple successful launches of film product. Like, how do you have that conversation around keeping your access to not just residuals, but also making sure that no matter where the pieces go, that the credits are clear and that ownership is maintained?
Well, that's a that's a huge challenge. That is a huge challenge in this business. It's something we continue to fight for, and unfortunately, that only comes with having done more things and having had more success. Because initially, it's so hard just to get something made, and just getting something made, like you can work on something and it might not have your name on it, and you have to kind of like put in that time. And then even if you do, like just getting something produced, your influence and being able to, I remember one of our first movies we were making, like the producer was saying, like, if you're able to get 50 to 60% of what you initially wrote or had in mind on the screen, then that's a success. And it's difficult because you craft these stories and you curate these worlds, and like it's like your baby, and you want to make sure that your vision and your voice is what's being seen on the screen. But this is also a very collaborative medium, and there's going to be other people that have opinions. Like executives are going to have opinions, producers are going to have opinions, the directors are going to have their opinions, and you have to find a way to work together. And like a goal for Murder Inc. and something we're doing is, wanting to produce, move it, as we grow as not just a writing team, but a production company, so we can produce and have our hands as much as possible on the final outcome. But that's just something that comes with, time and success of having put out, a couple of things. But it's something we fight for with all of our projects. And it also depends on how things come to you. So like we might get an OWA, which is like an open writing assignment. So if a production company or a studio approaches us with a piece of material, then obviously we don't have as much ownership of that. So they're like, we're going to hire you guys to work on this idea that we already have, or this piece of IP that we already own. So from that, in that way, you don't have as much control. But if it's something that we've come up with and we're writing something on spec, it's our own original idea. Like with Homecoming, we've had projects that we've been approached to do and we wrote, and obviously we fell in love with it, and then you kind of hand it off and like, okay, go with God and do what you do. But something like a Homecoming, where it's based on our friends, it's based on our experience, and we wrote it on spec, nobody paid us to write it. When we took it to the marketplace, we were very clear that we're not just handing this over. Anyone who wants to partner with us, who wants to make this with us, they have to understand that we're going to produce this, and we're going to be involved from start to finish in making sure that we're getting our exact vision out on screen. And luckily, we were able to do that with our producing partners in Mandeville and John Legend's company, Get Lifted, and it's set up at Lionsgate now, and they were very supportive of that.
50 to 60% of what you originally wrote is considered a success if it's appearing in the. So what I've heard from you is half your baby is gonna make it, and
maybe, yeah.
And you thank God.
If you're lucky, half your baby makes it, and that's a win.
A writing mentor told me to get out of my feelings in terms of how I would see a piece transform, or like in incorporating suggestions. And this is just among writers and writing group. And I thought that the feelings were part of what kept it authentic. But right. How do you separate that connection to the character, which is what gets you the originality, right? It's what gets you something novel, and then kind of that conformity to somehow maybe meet the previous bars set or match the previous pieces.